Most players are using Strongholds completely wrong. They think it's just infinite blocking, or a build that looks cool but does no damage. But when you understand how this exotic actually works, it turns Titans into absolute DPS monsters. I'm Juggernaut, and this is the strongest blade build for Titans. Strongholds has been one of the most used Titan exotics this season, thanks to sword artifact perks and the new Praxic Blade. But ask most players what it does and they'll say, yeah, it's the blocking exotic. Which is like saying pizza is just bread. My guy, you're missing the entire point. And honestly, I get it. Look at this perk description.
Who could possibly figure that out? That's completely mental.
So let's break it down the right way. Strongholds has 3 effects, and only one is obvious. It maxes your sword guard stats, so you block 95% of damage, and you can block basically forever. Cool, but blocking alone is boring. The real power comes from the next 2 effects. See, when you block damage and then deal sword damage, Strongholds gives restoration times 2. That's 50 HP per second, the highest passive healing in Destiny. No kills required, no conditions, just block, then swing. And here's the insane part. With the Praxic Blade, reflected damage counts as sword damage. So you can block, reflect damage, and instantly activate restoration times 2 without even attacking. It's ridiculous. Number 3 is the hidden top tier damage resistance. While blocking, you gain resist times 4. That's 50% damage resistance, the same as times 8 frost armor. And when you drop your guard to attack, the buff stays active for several seconds. So now you're attacking with restoration times 2, 50% DR, and near invulnerability when blocking. Most players will see this and think, okay, this is a tank build. That's the trap. Strongholds handles survivability for free, which means we can build for pure damage. I tested every subclass with the Praxic Blade fully optimized, and after the first round of tests, here are the results. Solar was the clear overall winner, but it has 2 problems. First, ignitions don't stack in fire teams. So if your fire team has more than one player using a Solar Super and the Praxic Blade, the whole fire team loses damage. Second, the Titan Solar Super is straight doo-doo for DPS, because it's a roaming super, and that's when it hit me. Thunder Crash and Twilight Arsenal are one-off supers. So I retested with the one-off supers, because that's how we actually play the game. The results were, frankly, shocking. While Pure Arc Titan came out with an impressive DPS of 1382, both prismatic versions, T-Crash and Twilight Arsenal, destroyed it in total damage. This is huge, and it's on top of the insane survivability we already talked about. So with these results in mind, let's break down the rest of the build. For our super, I went Twilight Arsenal. It applies the weaken debuff with the Praxic Blade, and it synergizes with our Void artifact perks. For abilities, I went with the Pulse Grenade for reasons I'll talk about in a second, and the melee was Frenzied Blade for an easy darkness debuff. The aspects don't really matter for this build, just run whatever makes you feel comfortable. The fragments, however, matter a lot for damage. So we're taking Facet of Dawn, which gives Radiant on melee hits, and Radiant is a 20% damage boost to your weapons. Facet of Courage, light abilities do 10% damage to enemies affected by darkness debuffs. Facet of Dominance, Void Grenades weaken targets and Arc Grenades jolt targets. Facet of Sacrifice, additional Darkness Transcendence energy when we have a light buff. And Facet of Grace, increased Transcendence when we get kinetic weapon kills. The result is nearly infinite uptime in Transcendence, and a DPS powerhouse. Next, let's add the artifact. In the second column, Gravitic Voltaic Charge. Gain an additional armor charge slot, which really matters when we get to armor charge. In the third column, Kinetic Synthesis. Nearly infinite ammo for our sword, and Power from Pain, which gives Devour from killing weakened enemies. Now we have Devour on top of Restoration times 2. In the fourth column, we take Combination Argent Blade, which is a 15% extra damage when you pause after a light attack, and Singularity Blade, which creates a weakening burst while a void buff is active. In the 5th column, we take Sword Storm combo. 3 light attacks summons a storm of swords for 5 seconds. And Kinetic Rupture. Dealing kinetic damage spawns a kinetic rupture that deals bonus damage when it's broken. Since we're talking about kinetic weapons, let's talk about our Praxic Blade setup. Impact Core applies elemental debuffs on sword light hits. Offensive Form generates ammo for landing 3 light attacks. And Hyperblade, which gives us Amplified. This is used to close the gap and gives us a 15% added damage resistance. Finally, let's talk about how to optimize this setup. Not mandatory, but ideal. For your armor stats, you want as much super as you can get, push towards 200. For your second stat, weapons. This is going to give you max ammo and damage, push it as close to 200 as you can get. And finally, melee, which is just an optional third stat. For this build, I'm using 4 pieces of Paragon that have melee and super as primary stats, with a third stat in weapons. As for armor set bonus, there are 2 different recommendations I have. The first is to go with the 4-piece tech sec bonus. This will give you the 2-piece bonus Wrecker, which passively increases kinetic damage toward combatant shields, overshields, vehicles, and constructs by 200%. And the 4-piece is concussive rounds, where when you defeat an elite combatant or break a combatant's shield with kinetic damage, it will release a disorienting burst. The other route you can go is 2 pieces of Tech Sec and 2 pieces of the Swordmaster set. The 2-piece for Swordmaster is Balestra. Upon damaging an enemy with a sword, glaive, or melee attack, inflicts exhaustion for 5 seconds. And as a reminder, exhaust is a 10% reduction in enemy damage. Now, you could use Ferropotent, but you don't need the extra DR in this build. For the mods, the important ones are on the helmet, 1 copy of Kinetic Siphon, and a double super font. On the chest, use resist mods. As a reminder, resist mods give you 15% damage resistance from their sources, and if you double stack them, it goes up to 25%. On the legs, 2 copies of Kinetic Surge. This is a 17% increase in sword damage when you have armor charge. And finally, on the mark, 2 copies of Time Dilation, which is going to give you 18 seconds per armor charge, for a total of 54 seconds at times 3, and Proximity Ward, which gives you an overshield on Finisher. That's all from me today. Be sure to check out the build link in the pinned comment. And if you enjoy this type of video, share it with a friend, and of course, let us know in the comments. GG, Fireteam.